Hello and welcome again to the Infamous Films Podcast, the only podcast that happens whenever the fuck I feel like. Today I'm talking again with my good friend ThornBrain.
Hello.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done one of these. I was thinking of trying to do it for the past few months, but haven't really been inspired, haven't really found a reason to record, and then ThornBrain of course approached me to, since we're about halfway through the year now, we've had some big movies come out in the world of comic book adaptations and also with television. A lot of stuff has happened since we last recorded, so it felt like a good time to hash these things out, talk about them, how we felt about what's come out so far, any kind of expectations we're having for the rest of the year. And it's also good timing because Comic-Con just started. Yeah, that with I guess technically like day zero, I guess if you want to call it, was yesterday, and today I think is kind of the first day where things are starting to happen, and then more things will come out over the weekend, and I might do my own separate video next week on what we learned from all the panels and all the different stuff that is definitely going to be coming out of Comic-Con. So we're going to start off with some personal updates, things that are going on with my channel and all that stuff. So last time I did this podcast, I was mentioning franchise fatigue, my review series. Script was done. I was ready to shoot it. I was ready to get it done. And that kind of fell through recording issues, and also I managed to record one session, and then I did not like how it came out, so I haven't really had the time with everything else that's been going on to go back and record it, but I have in the meantime scripted another episode, so I have 2 scripts now, so hopefully that'll mean that once I finally do get the first of the 2 recorded and edited, I'll be able to also come out with another one soon after that. And I'm pretty happy with what I have script-wise, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
Any personal updates for you, ThornBrain, that you want to let our listeners know about?
Well, since the last podcast, we on the Midnight Frogs, we jumped back into abridging because Team 4-Star held an abridging contest in June 2016. We did an episode of Pokemon Origins, and we had so much fun doing it, we decided to go ahead and do the entire 4-episode special. So we only have the first episode out. Eventually we'll get working on episode 2. My buddy Jacob and I are still writing the SFA movie. We did have that planned for this summer, but then we spent all of June working on the Origins. We called it How I Caught Your Mother. The title doesn't make sense yet, but it will eventually. But and we haven't worked on it at all through all of July. So maybe fall, maybe winter, but we are still working on the SFA movie.
With the whole bridging competition, I guess, for Team 4-Star, for a while, I'll admit I was tempted to sort of come out of quote-unquote retirement, because I did kind of stop abridging. I just kind of lost my passion for it in a sense, and I thought this might be a good opportunity to do it, but I had other things going on, and I didn't have a solid idea of what I wanted to do, so I decided to kind of pass on it. Who knows, I might still do one or more of the things I was thinking about in the future, so never say never, but for right now, that didn't end up happening. But if you have not checked out ThornBrain's and Crew's Midnight Frogs special on Pokemon Origins, is seriously and I've seen several of the entries. I haven't seen all of them, obviously, but it is by far my favorite, and that's not coming from a biased point of view, I promise. It just legitimately made me laugh the hardest, and I'm really excited to see the rest of it, and obviously for the SFA movie. But yeah, that's awesome.
I really want to get a podcast going eventually to talk about How I Caught Your Mother, because There's there's some shit in there that I think needs explaining.
Yeah. There's definitely some. I mean, I think like, you know, you do make wikis for every video you guys do, and that sometimes like when something like skips by me, I'm not sure where that came from. Like a lot of times I look there because you guys do a pretty good job at kind of explaining yourselves. But
Wiki pages, not entire wikis.
yeah. But the yeah, I definitely want to dive into that because that's that whole special was just crazy. Just which when you put both you and Jacob in a room, it's probably gonna get that way. Um.
Yeah, he didn't write for that one, but he is writing
Uh.
for the movie.
Oh yeah. No wait. That was Wait. That was Travis, right? And
Travis
you
and Yoshi, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it was the three of you. Which again, I'll repeat myself. If you put the three of you in the room, it's gonna be pretty crazy. But that's exciting, and hopefully we'll talk more about that as things progress. But to get to the meat of the conversation today, we're gonna kind of go. I separated our topics by Marvel and then DC, and within that I put things in terms of when it was released, because a lot of things came out. Four movies have come out
Majority
between.
of what we talked about the last time.
Yeah, pretty much. And then the fifth of those movies is coming out in a few weeks now, so I kind of want with Suicide Squad, and I kind of want to talk about that, but we'll get to that later. For now, we're gonna start at the top with um kind of the surprise that no one like people suspected was gonna be big, but had no idea it was gonna be this huge was
Yeah.
Deadpool. When we last recorded, it was coming out that week that we were recording it, but it hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
And I finally got the chance to see it that weekend. And holy shit, that movie is by far for me like the funniest movie of the year so far, hands down. Made and is It's such a strange but awesome movie that I thought it was going to be a success. I was like, this is probably going to do well because the marketing is really good on it. But I had no idea it was going to be that like good, or that it was going to be that successful, that many people were going to be interested in it. And so I'm personally like really happy with how that turned out. So what were your general thoughts on Deadpool?
Best use of Chicago, I think, ever.
Yeah. Uh,
Now, I liked Deadpool a lot. Again, I come from a non-comic book reading background, so all I knew of Deadpool is what everyone else said about him, or like what bits and pieces people put on Tumblr and what have you. But I went in knowing that Ryan Reynolds and crew were fans and wanted to do Deadpool justice, and I feel like I saw what Deadpool should be. Very funny, very vulgar, very bloody, very violent, but fucking fun all the way through. It's a really good movie.
yeah, it is a really good movie, and it's funny because when you first see that movie and you're like all caught up in the comedy and the violence, and it's so great, and but you think back on it, and it's really funny how that movie is really like a love story.
Yeah,
Where it's like
it's a romantic comedy.
Yeah, it's like the world's like most bloody and like craziest romantic comedy, and it's because the whole relationship with him and Vanessa and that whole thing was just it was actually like heartwarming, and like actually like you got invested in it and you actually cared about the fact that like, and the whole basis around this whole movie is him literally trying to win her back. So it's this kind of weird like take on the character, but I loved it. And
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds, to me, like, I'm so glad that he got a chance to redeem himself with people and with this character especially, because this feels like a role he was born to play, and he knocked it out of the park. Really, all the actors in the movie were just really great. I loved TJ Miller, who played Weasel. His relationship with Deadpool and just the back and forth they had, and Blind Al and the actress who played Vanessa. Blind Al was so great, and the villain as well. Like I really liked the villain. He was kind of like, he wasn't the most interesting character in the world, but he didn't need to be, and he was like a good like kind of point for Ryan Reynolds to bounce off of. Like he didn't, and he wasn't like too distracting from the story.
I guess I feel like he was the weakest part of the movie, but he was necessary because he had to be the. Well, I guess the problem with him was that he didn't have a sense of humor, which, as a counterpoint to Deadpool, I guess is the most obvious one to make, but it gets
Yeah,
in the way
yeah,
at the same time.
that could have been stronger for sure. Um, Definitely, the Angel Dust character, the I think it was Gina Carano,
Yeah,
who played her. Uh, she was definitely like kind of like, I guess she was the muscle in terms of like why she was there in the story, but she didn't really like have much to do either, which was kind of like a bummer. But um, I think she was a necessary part. Like she kind of like needed to be there like as a physical threat, to keep the action interesting, and to be like a basically an obstacle for Colossus, who was also featured in the movie, who was who was great, and the fact that he was kind of like this weird like Russian dad, kind of
yeah,
like in and like my favorite bit was when he near the end when he's trying to give the speech to Wade about like, oh, like it only takes a few like moments in your life to be a hero, and he's like listening, and then spoiler alert, he he just blows his brains out, and then
he
just
gets
like,
fed up with it and just
yeah, he's
does
just
it.
like, yeah, pretty much. And Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who is
She was
like,
awesome.
she was awesome. Like her powers were really cool, and she was just a really good character. I really hope they bring him back for the sequel, which I'm excited about. And yeah, so with Deadpool was kind of like right out the gate, such a strong movie to start off the kind of superhero season for this year, and it would kind of, in a way, it'd be hard to top it because, like, I mean, we'll talk later about, or it might be coming up soon, next actually with Captain America: Civil War, but even with that movie coming out, it like one of those things where like it's neck and neck with Deadpool in terms of like how much I enjoyed myself watching that movie. Civil War probably still being the better movie, but Deadpool was like just a lot of fun for me.
It being an R-rated movie is probably like it's that successful R-rated comic book movie. It has caused a wave probably
Yeah,
because I think there was an announcement that Batman v Superman is getting an R-rated cut. So they didn't learn the right things from being an R-rated movie, but it's going to have an effect.
yeah, that's it was actually like interviews, I think, or comments from filmmakers. I think that James Gunn, who directed Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of made a comment about it where he was like, he hopes that studios don't get the wrong idea from the success of Deadpool, which was like, oh, because it was an R-rated superhero movie, it made all this money. It's like, no, that's not why. It's because the R rating fit the character and they were true to the character, and that was what resonated with people, and the fact that it was different, that it wasn't just the same old story, the same old kind of characters, and like it was unique, is what resonated with people, and why people like loved it so much and went back to see it again, and why it was such a big phenomenon when it came out. So yeah, and with the, I mean, to be fair to the R-rated Batman vs Superman cut, that was more, I think, a happenstance and like it wasn't like intentional, or maybe it was to a certain extent, but that I feel like Zack Snyder, when he made that movie, he did have a cut early on that did qualify as R rated at the time, even before Deadpool came out. So
Hmm.
so that was just kind of circumstantial, but you could argue like the fact that they're releasing it and making it a point that it is R rated is in response to Deadpool. So there's both sides to that argument, but
Yeah, I guess.
I'm hoping that the I'm hoping that they do take the right lesson and not just for like, because I believe from reports now, the next solo Wolverine movie that they're making is going to be R rated, but I feel like that makes more sense for Wolverine's character because he's violent and known for being vulgar, like maybe not Deadpool vulgar, but
No.
he but he's definitely like he does not give a fuck, and he is like willing to just chop people up into pieces, and like people have felt in the past with other Wolverine movies that it's felt watered down because it didn't have the opportunity to be R rated. But yeah,
And there was
hopefully,
a Wolverine game that was M rated that got good reviews. So
yeah, there was, and so hopefully they've taken away the right things, and and hopefully because of Deadpool's success, I think we're starting to see interest in these more kind of tertiary characters
yeah.
be introduced and be like explored more, and like people are, and hopefully they're more willing to take chances on interesting ideas and projects because of Deadpool's success.
Interesting they haven't learned the lesson that people don't seem to give a shit about the Wolverine movies.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it. I'm skeptical at best. We'll see how this one will turn out, but 2 movies in, I'm not super impressed.
Yeah.
Uh, so uh, moving on from Deadpool, the next movie from Marvel that came out was Captain America: Civil War.
Yes.
This one was one that I had been looking forward to for so long. When I first heard it was coming out, I was really excited to see it. I thought it was, it was a ballsy move to, to go this direction and to put these characters in these positions. And I kind of like the idea of like, of kind of fucking with people in the sense that, like, because people love these characters so much, and like, everyone has their favorite. Some people like love Captain America, some people love Iron Man, but to actually in the movies in canon put them against each other in like a no holds bar beatdown where like they're actually out for blood at a certain point was like crazy, because like you could see like in the lead up to this and even after the fact, like the fandom lose their shit, especially people who weren't familiar with the comics at all, or like had any idea that this was based on a storyline. Like they're just like, no, like no, like don't, like not this, not this. And it was kind of amazing in like in a weird kind of dark way. But I was really excited for this movie, and I was so happy when I saw it, because there could have been a lot of ways for this movie to go wrong, for it to like be either too crowded or to like to have too much going on and lose focus and not like, and kind of be a mess. But it
Hmm.
was so good and so well put together, and it still felt like a Captain America movie, or even though like you had all these other characters, and like some people thought it would be like, and it kind of was also, it was both a Captain America movie and an Avengers movie, because it was kind of the culmination of all these different storylines. And like I've had it described, and I think it's the best way to put it, is it's basically like this kind of season finale of like a really like expensive TV show where it's like all these separate movies that have had some connection to each other but have kind of been on their own like standalone movies, uh, except for the Avengers, has led to this point. Like you don't get the emotional connection to this story without having seen like Avengers Age of Ultron and like Iron Man and Captain America and Winter Soldier and all these different movies leading up to it. And you can still enjoy the movie on its own, but it has that much more weight to it when you have all these other movies that you've seen and you know these characters as well as Marvel has done in bringing them to you. So I thought it really paid off well, and it was just a fun time, but also just a really good movie more than just like, oh, like it's a fun action like comic book movie. It was like just as a movie, just really solid.
Yeah, and it's a good point that you bring it up because I can't think of any particular franchise or even company that's been this ambitious. Because even just in the lead up to the Avengers, it was just a bunch of superhero movies, and now they're together. But now we have an entire universe with all these movies coming out every year, and people are still into it. People are still going to see the movies, and we can still have this big team up or clash, all with these same characters, and it's still going really well. I can't think of that happening at any point, at least in film, up until now.
Yeah, it's pretty much the most ambitious film experiment ever can see. Like it's and I mean, we'll see how much further it can go, but the fact that it's gone this far, it's 2016, this thing started in 2008 with Iron Man, that's 8 years. That is impressive on itself, and even if tomorrow it all blows up in their face and it ends, that is a hell of a run, and that's a hell of an experiment to pull off, and it proves that things like this can be done, and that's why other companies are starting to do it. And again, we'll see how long it lasts, but for now it's like incredible that it's gone on this long and has been this successful.
Yeah.
As for the movie itself, like I think for me this is like the strongest like movie for both, I think, well, definitely for Tony Stark's character. I think this is like
Mm-hmm.
the most like growth he's had as a character, and he's you know, after the events of like Age of Ultron and like and Iron Man 3 and all these movies, he's become so different from what he was in the first Iron Man movie. It's kind of insane to look at it and be like, it's like night and day. Like he still has that Tony Stark like charisma and everything, but he doesn't, but his views on the world have changed so much. And to the point now that he is on the opposite, where if you had done this movie with Iron Man 1 Iron Man and like Captain America 1 Captain America, they'd be on opposite sides of the situation. Like Captain America would probably be pro registration and Iron Man would be like, no, like fuck the government, like this, like I'm a lone wolf kind of guy, or like I don't follow orders. But because of the events of Winter Soldier and because of the events of Age of Ultron for Tony, it becomes a flip flop, and so I just love that dynamic, um
And it
and
all totally makes sense.
yeah, it totally makes sense for their characters, and the fact that you had the Winter Soldier who, you know, is kind of like, you know, Tony even like references it like the Manchurian Candidate kind of like situation, and but there is like this legitimate question of like, well, I mean, even though he was mind controlled, Bucky did kill all those people. Like it's not like he's not totally innocent in a sense. Like he still has that blood on his hands, but you know, it becomes like this really interesting philosophical question. And you know, the scene where where Tony and Steve and Bucky are all in Siberia, and like and Tony finds the video, or I guess Zemo shows the video to Tony Stark, and like he sees Bucky kill his parents in front of him. Like that scene alone is like really like effective and really strong, and like you get why all of a sudden he's just like, I'm fucking done. I'm taking this guy out. So there's just and a lot of great emotional moments in that movie for me. But there's also some really awesome just like fun action and moments with that airport fight scene.
I love that fight scene.
It's so good. The fact that like all these characters have like their moment to shine, and when Ant-Man grows to like the size, to this giant size, and he's like, I've never done this before, like he's experimented with it, and he's just like, it's like it's like
I
a
love the
god's,
look in his eyes when he does it.
yeah, he's just like, holy shit, like I'm giant. And he's like swinging, like he's like moving like Godzilla or something, and he's like swinging around. And of course Spider-Man, when he shows up, and he and he has like that moment where he's like, hey guys, have you ever seen that old movie The Empire Strikes Back? And like he starts, and like they do like the whole like wrapping the legs and brings them down, and it's so good. And then
Up until that moment, I was thinking, man, there's not enough Ant-Man in this, and wow,
yeah,
that's a whole lot of Ant-Man right at
yeah,
once.
he's like, they do a really good job at using him, where he's like, he shows up for a little bit, but like he's really memorable when he shows up. And Paul Rudd's just amazing. Um, and then you have like the relationship between Falcon and Bucky, where like they're kind of like, it's kind of like the jealous like ex-boyfriend, like hey, I know you two had a thing, but now like he's mine, so it's kind of like that whole thing. And and just when the two of them are running like down the airport like hallway or whatever, and then Spider-Man jumps in and attacks them, and they just, and I think I want to say it was Falcon, where like he does like some weird like cool trick, and he like sends Spider-Man flying. And
I
then,
think he uses the Red Wing. What's it called? It's the little drone that he
oh
has.
yeah, the drone, Red Wing that he calls it, I think. And he uses the drone, and he like sends Spider-Man flying, and they're just laying there really quiet for a second, and Bucky's like, you could have done that earlier. He goes, I hate you. And then of course the moment where like they're meeting up with Sharon, and he's like, uh and Bucky's just like sitting in the front, or sitting in the back, I think, and then Falcon's in the front seat. He's like, hey, can you move your seat up? And he goes, no.
No.
No. And yeah, so that relationship was just really really great. And then just and the introduction of Spider-Man 2 is really strong,
Yeah.
where you see him, and he's in Queens, and uh and the fact that you had Tony Stark flirting with Aunt May, because she's like noticeably like much more attractive in this version. And there and like that whole scene was just really well done. And
Well, they
the
had both been in a movie before.
really, which one?
I forget which one.
Oh man.
It's Only You.
Oh, with wait, you're talking about Robert Downey Jr. And
Marisa
Tom
Tomei, yeah.
Holland and Marissa Tomei. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, they were in a movie for a while ago. Yeah, I remember that being brought up, but I couldn't remember which movie. But yeah, that whole sequence was really really good. And the Black Panther as well. Of course, we can't forget about Black Panther, who
I loved Black Panther.
he was so cool. And like his his whole introduction, where he's like kind of just shows up at the at, I guess, the UN meeting, I think it's at. And then he has that chase scene with Bucky where you first see him in the suit, and then that scene afterwards where they all get arrested and Black Panther's in the van and he's talking to Captain America and he's like something along the lines of, as both uh warrior and king, tell me, how long do you think you can protect your friend from me? Like he's basically like, I like you're safe for now, but your friend is he's gonna die. Like it's just a matter of when. But then he has that kind of change of heart near the end. With, I think, well, I mean, I don't know if you feel the same way I do, where kind of the weakest part of the movie, or not, I guess not the scene itself, but the character of Zemo, for me, worked in a sense. Like the purpose of the character was important. Like he was important to the story in terms of, kind of putting together all these different machinations and, and pitting these two against each other. Now that I think about it, very similar to another movie we're going to talk about in a second later.
Handled much better.
Handled much, yeah, handled much stronger. Comparatively, like he doesn't have as much screen time, I think, but the performance definitely works because the actor himself, Daniel Bruhl, is really, really good. But I wish they developed him a little bit more. But his character kind of worked, I guess, for the plot that they needed, and they kept him alive, so they can do more with him. So that's exciting because a lot of times Marvel just kind of kills off their villains. They're just like, he's one and done. Like, and except for like Loki and like Red Skull maybe is still alive somewhere, but for now he's considered dead.
I liked Zemo. At the start when he's introduced, it didn't even occur to me that he was the villain. I thought maybe he was a lackey or something, because he's almost so understated in what he does. But he became far more interesting the more the movie went on, and more of what he was doing sort of unraveled. And then at the end in Siberia, when he kills again, spoiler alert, all the other Winter Soldiers, it's like, wow, suddenly he became an incredibly fascinating villain, because he's not powerful, he's just smart.
Yeah, I did like that. He's smart enough to know, like, I'm not strong enough to take out the Avengers. Like I'm not a super powerful being. I'm not like some like great military leader. Like he's not in any kind of position of power. He's just one man with a very strong personal vendetta. And so he's like, I'm just going to use my brains and resources to tear the Avengers apart from the inside. And that was a legitimate twist in the movie when it was like, oh, he's not going there to awaken the Winter Soldiers. Like that, like I was like, oh, like that's the plot. Like, and it's gonna end with like this big climax where like they fight like a bunch of like these like super strong thugs. No, he's just like, the line where he's like, did you really think I wanted more of you? And like the fact that like he's hiding behind that, and the fact that he's kind of like, when you look at him, he's not a physically imposing guy. Like he's not. Like he's just like this kind of regular schmo. Like he's like he dresses in like polos and like, or like these weird like sweaters like a lot of times, or like, and he's just a kind of a regular guy. And that introduction scene was really cool where like he's interrogating the guy, and I thought that was like really, really like at that point like he was intimidating in a sense. But I really like the end scene with him and Black Panther where he's basically kind of breaking down what happened to him, and he's like ready to kill himself, and then Black Panther stops him. Like that was like a really like emotional moment, and could have gone very like dark if he hadn't stepped in.
So in fact, like that entire ending scene, when they were going to Siberia and when Tony put the pieces together and went there himself, I almost thought that the entire plot of Civil War, like these two factions fighting each other, was starting to fall apart because now we're just going up against a villain. Then it became clear what Zemo's plan was to tear them apart. Suddenly, the entire movie was complete.
Yeah. The fact that like you think like, oh, this is the part where they become friends and they team up and like they do their thing. But then, that monkey wrench where he's like, I have this video that shows the Winter Soldier murdering your parents, and the fact and like that scene particularly, like, like there's been like some like people who are Tony wouldn't do that. Tony wouldn't understand. Tony like was like, and but the fact is Tony, like, as rational and as like intelligent as he is, he's like at this point it's like just an emotional response, and like he like solidifies that when he like when because Cap is trying to reason with him. He's like, listen, he was under mind control, and the fact that he just like looks at him point blank and says, I don't care, he killed my mom, like, and like, because at this point it doesn't matter that he was under mind control. He's just like, he's just looking like he's just out for blood. Like, he's just like, I don't give a shit what the reasons were. He physically like killed them, and like that's his whole reason for his explosion. And then that whole fight scene was really like visceral. Like, they were literally like going at each other, and like the fact that Bucky like went for like his arc reactor and like was like pretty much like the PG-13 version of ripping his heart out. Like, it's kind of intense. And then the fact that Cap is like he makes a choice. Like, he's like, I could side with Tony, but Bucky's my friend and I'm not gonna abandon him. And he almost in his own way kind of he leaves him broken. Like, he puts the shield in him and he like walks away. Like, that's pretty intense.
In fact, in the trailer, when they had Cap say, "He was my friend," Tony said, "So was I." They made it sound like Tony was really sad, like he was losing something. When he says it in the movie, it's far more heartbreaking because in that case, Tony's on the offensive and he's going to try to kill Bucky. So if it's much more, like you said, visceral feeling of broken trust.
Yeah, it's like, because when he first sees the video, he turns to Cap and he's like, "Did you know?" And like, because like that was kind of like the point where he was like, because if Cap didn't, and like Cap was like innocent and all this, then maybe he could have like, he would have at least like been more, I guess, more reasonable, like if Cap had stepped in. But at this point, he's like, yeah, I knew. And he's like, well, fuck you then. He's like, then like, I don't care if you step between us or not. I'll take you both out if I need to, because that's fucked. Like, I trusted you. You were my friend. And then this gets thrown in my face and you tell me like, oh, like I knew all this time. It's kind of fucked up. And you, like, as much as you like side with Cap in a sense, and you're like, for the greater good of things, and for like, his heart's in the right place, you do like understand Tony. And like for times in the movie, for me, I was like, like Cap kind of fucked up here. Like, this is like like, as much as I love him, like he fucked up. Like, he kind of let his own emotions cloud his judgment as much as Tony did. Like, he's not 100% innocent in all this. He perpetuated a lie. He did kind of let his own personal feelings get in the way of his better judgment. So neither character is totally 100% like an angel and totally innocent and totally in the good. It's kind of this gray area of like, both of them have their reasons and their rights and their wrongs and the way they do things.
Yeah, so the movie wouldn't have worked if there were easy answers or an easy "It's cool, we're friends" ending, there
Yeah,
everyone is against each other for the right reasons.
yeah, and the note that the movie ends on, I think, is really good. It's not like totally bleak. There is like this sense of hope, but you still get the sense that things are not kosher, like things are not
No.
okay. Uh Even though Cap does extend kind of an olive branch in a sense where he's like, if you need me, call me. But until then, like we're
I got all these
still
friends that you locked up I need to
yeah.
save.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, like they're divorced now, and it's like, well, like maybe in like 5 years, like we can get joint custody of the kids, but until then, we're just yeah, we're not talking right now, and the wounds are still fresh. But I think and what's interesting is now, like, there's really like, because there's no Iron Man movies or Captain America movies within the next few years planned. So like we have like Doctor Strange, and like and we have Thor Ragnarok, we have Guardians of the Galaxy, we have all these different movies coming out. None of them focused on the characters that were focused on in Civil War. So it'll be years before we see how these characters are doing. Like before we check in on them again with the next Avengers movie, which is kind of like, it's kind of genius, because now it's like it's actually kind of like a cliffhanger, because now like we may like hear reference to things that happen, and we may see like tertiary characters from like, because I think also Ant-Man has a movie,
Yeah,
but he was like barely, like not involved in that emotional, like he wasn't that emotionally deep into the story. You might see characters like that, like that are involved in that story. Like Black Panther has his own movie coming out before then, I think. But Cap and Tony are not going to be showing up. Like Tony might show, Tony's showing up in Spider-Man, but he's not going to be worried. He's not probably not going to be talking about Cap or like dealing with that consequence or that issue in that movie, because that's not his movie. That's
right.
not like his focus. So we because there's that break, we do feel like it's not, because otherwise then it would feel like, oh, but now they're friends like a year later, and like it won't feel like as much of like, I guess, a triumphant return, if that makes sense.
Right. One thing I did notice when we did the last podcast, I misunderstood what the Sokovia Accord that the movie's based around was for. Because in the comic, it's a superhero registration act where after these kids nuke a city block or something,
Mm-hmm.
all the supers have to have their secret identities noted.
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie, um, the Avengers are involved in these widespread calamities,
Yeah.
so they need to be a government agency. They need to be run by the UN. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's actually lower stakes because in the world of supers, your secret identity is everyone you love's. It's their protection.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this, we all know who the Avengers are, so
Yeah.
not as
That's
big. But I do also know that in Civil War, the comic, the people who read it are more mixed on it because a lot of the characters were out of character. Like people's opinion on it are much more mixed. Whereas in the movie, everything that happened makes sense more or less.
yeah. The I think a lot of people come at it from a perspective of like, because of what they know from the comics and what they know from what happens in it, they feel like, I feel like they're more attached to that story and the way that story plays out and the way those characters are presented. But I think for the MCU, for the movie versions of these characters, I feel like it was consistent, and I feel like
Yeah,
it worked. And the same can be said for the Superhero Registration Act, because I think the reason why they decided not to go with the whole secret identities angle is because in this world, uh secret identities are not as focused on. Like there's still like heroes that like lead double lives and like like Spider-Man, like um I don't think Scott Lang being Ant-Man is public knowledge.
No.
Um like, and you could still argue like, yeah, some have secret identities that they have to protect, but it's also the world where, or the version of this world where Tony Stark being Iron Man is public knowledge,
Right.
and where Steve Rogers and Captain America, like he doesn't lead a secret life as Steve Rogers. Like Steve Rogers, like if you see Steve Rogers without his mask on, you go, oh, that's Captain America. Like, hey, Captain America, and
There's
it's
much less of a duality.
yeah, there's much less duality to the character. I feel like a lot of the characters, at least the main characters, and Thor is like he doesn't really have a secret identity. Bruce Banner, like kind of, but not really. Like the government knows who he is already, so that's not like a secret. Like even if it might not be public knowledge to like just anyone on the street, it is knowledge to the government, who is the ones who are asking for the secret identities. So I feel because the world isn't as expansive as it is in the comics, where like you have like literally hundreds, if not thousands, of characters, a lot of them with secret identities that are like their real names are not public knowledge or government knowledge. Then it makes more sense for that to be like a high stakes thing, or like I don't want people like knowing my name. Like I have fucking enemies and like people trying to kill me, and like and they know my name now, or they can get my name, and they don't trust that. So that makes more sense for the world of comics. And so that's for me why that angle was like, I understood why they didn't go with that, because it feel kind of like there's no need for it really. And it kind of, and there's more than enough reason for government registration with all the collateral damage they were involved with. And so it's an interesting thought though. And because I mean, I do kind of, part of me wants to see that duality more, and I think we'll get that with like the Spider-Man movies probably,
Yeah.
because he's like the one who like definitely deals with that double identity thing. But most of the other characters don't have to really deal with that. Captain America is public knowledge. You know, Tony Stark ends the movie, the first movie, with "I am Iron Man," and like that's it. Like everyone knows. And then, so yeah, all the main Avengers don't really have that problem.
On that note, Spider-Man,
Yeah. So
when he was announced that he was going to be in the movie, I actually didn't care at all because
yeah, so did a lot of people. Not a lot of people. A lot of people were like, "Again, really? All right, whatever."
I liked the first two Sam Raimi movies.
Yeah.
Third one was I
Mm.
that was the point where I stopped caring, and then the Amazing Spider-Man movies I didn't even bother watching. So
Yeah.
I went into it. So like I went into the movie sort of just, well, let's see how it goes, and then okay, now I'm excited for Spider-Man again.
It's like, yeah, damn it. Like it's one of those things where like, fool me once, you know, with Spider-Man 3 like was not good. Like I don't know if I'm cool with Spider-Man right now. And then I saw the reboots. The first one was okay. Like I liked it. Uh I had issues with it as a movie in general, and also just, you know, small things, but like it was fine. And I really liked Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I thought like his portrayal of the character was strong, more so his Spider-Man than his Peter Parker, because his Peter Parker wasn't like your typical Peter Parker, but his Spider-Man was much more like, he had a sense of humor, he like cracked jokes, and he was, you know, very witty. But uh for me, I was like, and the sequel to that was just like, let's not talk about it. But uh you're right. Like when they were like Spider-Man's in it, I was like, okay, let's see. I'm like it's Spider-Man, so I'm gonna be excited, but I'm also like, we'll see how it goes. And he stole the show in every scene he was in. Well, I guess technically in like the 2 or 3 scenes he was in,
Yeah.
but he was awesome, and it got me really excited for the Spider-Man, especially because he's the youngest, or at least youngest in terms of well, I think the actor as well is also the youngest. He's I think 19 or 20,
At the
but
time of
he's the
filming, he was 19. Yeah,
yeah, and the character himself is like high school age, which is like they did it in the Sam Raimi ones and in the beginning of the um of the newer ones, but he was like high school in a sense, like Saved by the Bell almost. Like it's like this like you're really like 30, aren't you? Like like you don't look like a high school student. He looks like a high school student. Like he looks like a kid and he sounds like a kid. And it's this cool dynamic between because everyone else in the Marvel universe, or at least the main heroes, are full grown men. Like they're like at least 30 years old.
yeah,
Robert Downey Jr. being even older. So it's this cool like switch where now like we have a hero who's like literally a teenager, and I'm really excited to see his movie, which I think comes out next year. So it's close. They're already shooting it.
oh wow,
So that's pretty exciting.
yeah. I feel like
Uh,
Tom Holland's Peter is the first Spider-Man to get both uh, Peter Parker, the nerdy high school kid who gets beat up, and Spider-Man, the cool web slinger who makes a lot of quips. Was it Tobey Maguire? He was not a very good quippy Spider-Man.
yeah,
Total, you could easily believe he'd get beat up in high school.
yeah,
But
he was a great
Andrew Garfield,
nerd.
he was kind of too good looking.
Yeah, he was like kind of hipstery cool, like his Peter Parker, and then his Spider like it's like it was kind of like a lot of people saying like if you just took Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, you'd get the perfect Spider-Man. And that's kind of what they got here, like in a sense,
Yeah,
where like Peter Parker in this version, you do believe him as this nerdy kid who gets beat up, and like you can tell like even with like the post-credit scene with Civil War, like you get a sense he comes home a lot with black eyes and like but there's a but with him you also get this like um this quippiness with Spider-Man where but it feels modern. Like it doesn't feel like cuz with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man it was very much like based on like 60s comic Spider-Man where like Peter Parker was like a nerd, like nerd stereotype kind of where it was like he had the glasses and he had like he had the meek personality and like he was very like and it worked for the movie because of the tone they set and because of the story they were telling and it was very like and still felt genuine, like it didn't feel like like a cartoon, but it was very like hyper reality kind of nerd where this feels like more like modern day, like just he's like kind of a wimpy kid and someone who would get picked on but not like stereotypically so, where you could
yeah.
still kind of buy him as a real person in kind of modern day 2016.
But even more than Spider-Man, I loved Black Panther.
He was like he
He
was
was so
so
cool.
so cool, like
His suit was awesome. The shit he did was awesome.
yeah he
Chadwick
was
Boseman, his acting was awesome.
yeah he was so like he's like giving like an Oscar caliber performance in this movie, like legitimately like you're looking at this movie and you're just like holy shit, Black Panther is so fucking cool. He I again the suit
So
so
good.
cool, the claws and like the fact it's made of vibranium and that shot where he's staring down a machine gun like he's like I'm just gonna like really like you're gonna shoot at me right now.
And
And
Clint's explosive arrows blow up in his face and he just stands up.
yeah he's
I love that exchange too. We haven't met before. I'm Clint. I don't care.
I don't care, and he just, and he just fucks everything up and
Yeah.
I love the fact that like and his story in the movie too is so great because it's kind of like while this whole like back and forth with Tony and Cap is going on, he has like his own agenda going on. Like he has his own movie, like his own like revenge movie where he's just going after Bucky. And it's like, man, like if you just like took the Black Panther parts and just extended that into its own movie of this, like you could literally do like a sequel where it's like just from Black Panther's perspective, you can get a whole movie that works and has like a character arc and it's like really strong. And Chadwick Boseman is such a phenomenal actor, and I'm so excited for his standalone movie, especially because the director of it, I don't know if you've seen either Fruitvale Station or Creed, but
I need to see Creed, but
Creed is really really good. I
yeah, I've
highly
heard a lot
recommend.
of good things about it. And when I learned he was directing Black Panther, it's like, well, now I'm even more excited. Great.
Yeah, it's awesome. And also that movie is apparently like 90% African American or African cast, which is really cool.
Yeah, which it
Like,
ought to be. It's in Africa,
yeah, makes sense.
not like
Um,
all these white people in Egypt.
yeah, like, yeah, like, wow, it's surprisingly white here in Wakanda. But
Sun-drenched deserts.
yeah. So, but the Black Panther character just was so cool, and he stole every scene he was in. And when he showed up at the airport, and when he was chasing down Bucky on the motorcycle, and like he was just like on
Just
foot.
running.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was just on foot, fucking chasing down Captain America and Bucky, and I was just like, holy shit, this is so cool. And then he jumps and leaps, and he like claws at his his back wheels and like flips the both of them. It's so awesome. Uh, yeah, I'm super stoked for his movie,
Like
and
when T'Challa first appears, he's just a dude in a suit.
yeah,
But like when the bomb goes off, I it could very easily have just been the explosion blast propelling him, but for a second he looks like he's leaping like a panther.
yeah, he's like very like he's always ready for action, and like he's and I love the one of the other after credits scene when he when him and Cap are talking at where Bucky is being put under again because he wants to, he wants to get his mind sorted out before he hurts other people, and trying to keep himself out of harm's way and everyone else. And he's like talking with T'Challa, and he's like, if they find out where he is, they'll come for him. And he's like, let them try. He's just like sealed off in this building, and then you see it's Wakanda, like they're like, and it's got this like gigantic panther statue and like among this huge forest. It's so dope, and I'm like, and I'm just I'm so excited for that movie.
Just give me the movie already.
Just give it to me. Who do I have to kill? Um. So, oh man, I could talk about this movie forever, but we do have other topics.
All right. Well,
The
I can point out one more thing, which I think
oh
will,
yeah, go ahead.
which probably it's part of why I think Ant-Man wasn't great when it very easily could have been, but why this one was great and why I'm really looking forward to what else comes out of the MCU is because there was a big management change up in Marvel. There
Oh
was
yeah, yeah,
the CEO, I think, of Marvel. Let me look
yeah. I
for
think it was he was really
CEO Ike Perlmutter.
yeah, Ike Perlmutter. He well, technically I guess he's still CEO of Marvel, but what happened was like Marvel's movie division, Kevin Feige, he originally answered to Perlmutter, but um apparently that relationship wasn't the greatest,
No.
and they had a lot of like back and forth, and because apparently Perlmutter, a lot of it I think was like Perlmutter's notoriously apparently very stingy money wise, and also a little from, I don't know how true all the reports are, like these are still it's all like the second hand or like people speculating, but
Hmm.
um he was also not the most like open-minded and progressive person, in terms of like he was kind of an old school guy, and I'm thinking particularly of like things about like why we didn't see pretty much any female centric merchandising when it came to Marvel properties. Um,
You get a Black
and
Widow book. That's all you get.
yeah, A lot of it, with that old adage of girls don't buy action figures, that whole bullshit. But
Because there's no action figures for them to buy.
yeah, it's like it's kind of self fulfilling prophecy. You don't make shit, with girls in mind. And then you're surprised that girls don't buy shit. Like, put some effort into it. But anyway,
Yeah, actually,
uh,
quickly going back to Deadpool, I like Ryan Reynolds' reaction to that. It's like, no, girls like seeing violent action too. We don't need to quote unquote market to them. They already
yeah,
like it.
yeah, like people who like this shit are gonna like it whether they're a girl or a guy. Doesn't matter. Like, so, like, just make good shit and people will buy it, and like just enjoy your free money. So with Perlmutter, it was, but I think one of the bigger things was his, like, supposedly he was very, like, very tight with his budget, and wouldn't exactly let Feige do some of the things he wanted to do. So he basically went to Disney and was like, "Hey, so I don't like working with this guy, and he doesn't let me do the things I want to do, and the things I like to do will make you a lot of money. So what you should do is basically circumvent him and just have me answer to you guys directly, the heads of Disney. I think Bob Iger and I forgot the other guy's name. Alan Horn. So he answers to them directly now, and Perlmutter is basically he's still CEO of Marvel and like still handles like comics and other like properties and television, but he is but Feige doesn't answer him anymore. So basically, Feige is kind of lead the basically whatever he wants to do, as long as the heads of Disney allow him to do it, he can do it.
Sort of as an
So
auteur license now.
yeah, so and I you brought up Ant-Man with the whole Edgar Wright situation that happened, and also and with other like things that happened in Marvel's past. um I think with the whole Perlmutter thing dealt with, and now I think that Feige has more free reign to do whatever he wants and to spend the money he needs to spend to do what he wants and get who he wants. We'll see an improvement in the MCU, even more so than it's already been as good as it is.
You're with Disney. You have money to spend.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Disney, it is like just filled to the brim with money. They will, between Star Wars and Marvel, they have no qualms about spending as much money as they need to. So, I think that's nothing but good news for us. And it's exciting to see how that'll play out in the future.
Yep.
So, next up, X-Men Apocalypse. We won't go too deep into it because ThornBrain hasn't seen it yet. But I will say that I watched it and I liked it. I didn't love it. I wanted to love it. I wanted it to be like as good as like Days of Future Past or even First Class, which are the two X-Men movies that came before that I really loved. I thought X-Men was on a really good high and that it was like really strong. And I think this one kind of like falters a little bit. Bryan Singer directed this one as well. He directed not First Class. He directed Days of Future Past and the first two X-Men movies back in the early 2000s. So he knows X-Men and he knows how to make good X-Men movies. I think this one was just kind of just a weak entry, pretty much. Like, it wasn't as like, there were still a lot of great things I loved in it. Magneto was awesome. Professor X was awesome. And that's because you got two fantastic actors. You got Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy, who are great in everything they do. So of course they're really good in this. They give their characters some good stuff. The villain Apocalypse was okay. There were some strong scenes with him, and there was uh, some not so strong stuff. Oscar Isaac, who I really love as an actor, I feel like he wasn't like given as much to do as I wanted him to. And then there was Jennifer Lawrence for Mystique. She was I'm trying to find. She was she was passable, but I felt like she's just not really into this anymore, in a sense. Like, you get the sense, like, she's not super into the character, and she kind of, like, puts a stamp on it and puts in the envelope and then mails it in. But she's not, like, horrible, at least not in my opinion. So, like, she's whatever. Quicksilver was great. He has a fantastic scene using his super speed.
You would hope so, because they didn't use him nearly enough in Future Past.
Yeah, his one big scene in Future Past is really great. So they expand on that. He has more to do in this movie, so I'm glad about that, and he really works. His super speed scene, his like big super speed scene in this movie, I'll just say it involves the Eurythmics.
Amazing.
So yeah, it's really good, and like I do wish they focus more on, because like it is supposed to take place in the 80s, but sometimes like in the movie, like you kind of forget it, like even like except with maybe the fashion, you're like there's not a lot of 80s about this, like some of the soundtrack and some of the fashion and stuff, but like it's not like, I wish they focused on it a little bit more. You could tell like in the third act it kind of gets a little weak, but there are some cool moments. I really like a lot of the characters, a lot of the new actors for like Cyclops and Jean Grey and Nightcrawler. I really liked Storm when she's actually doing anything is kind of interesting. Spoiler alert, Psylocke barely does anything.
Yeah.
But overall, it was good, not great. If you're an X-Men fan and you're interested in seeing it and haven't seen it yet, I'd say give it a shot. You might like it. Other than that, not much else really to say on that one. And then last of Marvel's movie things, I guess. Doctor Strange coming out in a few months in November. We're gonna finally get Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, and if you listened to the last podcast, you kind of got our thoughts on that, our expectations of the movie. I'm interested to see how Marvel deals with this one, because it's more dealing with magic, and like it's less about like science or about like real world things. I'm wondering how that's going to turn out. I think they got a good director, a really strong cast. I mean, controversy aside with cast, it's yeah, which is kind of unavoidable. I'm still really looking forward to this movie. Hopefully, with Comic-Con, we get some kind of. I think a lot of people are expecting a new trailer to drop, which hopefully it drops soon.
One we got was kind of cool.
Yeah, the one we do have is pretty cool. More like kind of introducing us to the world. Hopefully, we get more of the story. At least more of a sense of it. Maybe more of the characters, like Baron Mordo and all the other cast members in the movie and what they're up to. So hopefully Doctor Strange turns out well. Next, we move on to TV. Daredevil season 2 happened while we were away, and man,
it was really good.
It was really good. The Punisher was
really good.
Was a standout. He was so strong. That whole like first 4 episodes with him especially.
They could have ended the season right there, really. Just after Frank's bit is done.
Yeah, pretty much. They could have like done it there like as like a mini series, and I would have been like that's perfect. but then it keeps going and it's still great even after that. The stuff with, when they put Frank in the in jail and he meets Kingpin for the first time, spoilers. It's such a strong like sequence where like he especially that fight scene where like he locks him into like the prison block and like he has to fight his way out. He's just covered in blood at the end of it. This season was like they really like that. This was TVMA for sure. Like this is like incredibly bloody, incredibly violent, and I loved every second of it.
Yep.
The stuff with Elektra was really good too. I really liked the actress for Elektra. I thought she kind of hit that perfect balance of like really like dark and fucked up and like not like the best person really. Like I don't know if like as like attractive as she is, I don't know if I'd ever want to date her because that just sounds like a nightmare. But she was really, really strong. I loved all the stuff with the hand and the just anything having to do with ninjas is really cool. So,
it's good enough just for that.
Yeah, it's good enough for just that. So, and it's ended pretty strongly too with spoilers, Elektra dying, being kind of her body abducted by the hand, and we're obviously she's going to be back, and then Daredevil revealing his identity to Karen, who really had a strong season too, with Karen, and her relationship with Frank was really good. Like that was something I didn't expect. Like I didn't expect like them to have this whole kind of subplot where she's like trying to prove that he's like not this like monster that people are portraying him to be. And Foggy had some good moments like where basically like Matt's being a really shitty friend and he just has to like carry Nelson and Murdoch on his back and win all these cases, and like his whole like back and forth with the DA, and like it's really strong stuff. Really love season 2. We have no idea when we're getting season 3. I'm assuming probably after like Defenders and Luke Cage and all that stuff. So, and we're also getting a Punisher series, which I didn't put in the notes here, but I just remembered like they announced that Punisher series is happening.
I do want Punisher more than I want Daredevil season 3.
Yeah,
at least I want that first.
Yeah, I definitely want that first, and hopefully they give that to us. Probably after Defenders, that will hopefully be the first series we get. I absolutely loved. I'm forgetting the actor's name now, but
John Bernthal.
John Bernthal, yes. He was just so good as Frank Castle, and I'm really because it's gonna be really interesting to see now where his character goes, because he's kind of he's changed now that he's dealt with Daredevil, and he's killed the guy who was responsible for his family's death. So now he's kind of just on his own mission, and I'm wondering how it's going to play out with the series, especially because Punisher is not exactly known for having like an arc necessarily. At least
he had one
comics.
within the season.
So it's going to be interesting now what the rest of his arc is going to be, because now he's kind of gone into just like, now I'm just going to kill scum, and that's pretty much all I really need from him. So that's going to be fun to see.
Yeah, I was incredibly pleasantly surprised because I knew John Bernthal from, I think, the first 2 seasons of Walking Dead.
Yeah.
As Shane was his name?
Yeah, I think it was Shane.
And I never liked Shane, but
yeah.
But when I saw he was cast as him, I thought, that's got to be perfect casting, I'm sure. And then Frank was such a good character the whole way through because you knew everything about him. You knew why he was doing everything he was doing, and there was a lot of emotional resonance with what he did. Like the last scene with him, not the last scene, but before he goes to jail, they're in the graveyard, and Frank's just talking about his daughter. I
Hmm.
watched that. I thought, fuck, give Bernthal an Emmy just for that scene.
Yeah, like I he deserves like all the awards for that monologue that he gave, and like even like before that, he has such a strong like in like when he's on the rooftop with Daredevil and he has him chained up, and he
Yeah,
has like that conversation where he's like, I think you're a half measure, like I think you can't finish the job, and he's like, and he basically like tells Daredevil that his work isn't enough and that he's doing what he needs to do. And it's just really compelling stuff and really like, this has been a year of like ideologies with superheroes
yeah.
being clashed. Which I don't know if that's a ridiculous coincidence, but it's like it was such a strong like character moment, and that graveyard scene, like I legitimately like got choked up watching it
Yeah.
because like he is just such a good actor, and like you see like just in his face you see the story that he's telling unfold, and it's like you said before, if it had ended there, like if we hadn't seen Punisher for the rest of the season and he was just locked away in prison, I would have been satisfied with that because he was so, but the fact that we just got more was just like even better.
Yeah. I think it just now occurred to me why I liked Punisher, but I didn't like Shane. Shane was scummy and kind of backstabby.
Mm-hmm.
Frank, everything is out there. There is no bullshit with him. You know
Yeah, he
exactly
is.
what he's going to do. You know exactly if he's on your side or not.
Yeah, he makes it known if you're his enemy or not, and he is not about like tricking people. Like he's like what you see is what you get, and what you get is a angry dude with a bunch of guns who just wants to, and like that, just every scene that he's in, like that scene where he goes to the pawn shop, and that pawn shop owner, that fucking like scumbag, he like and he's like talking about like oh, like I have these videos and like all that stuff, and like he brings it up, and like that moment where he just like walks up to the door, or like he walks up to the door and he locks it. He turns around and he just grabs like I think a bat or something, and you just know he's gonna fucking go to town on the guy. It's so great.
Every scene
And
with Frank has gravity to it, and a lot of it.
yeah, and oh my god, the scene! I just remember the scene where they're on the rooftop, but they get interrupted by the guy, the I guess the landlord or whatever,
Oh
who
yeah, like
comes
the
up.
tension on that
The
was
tension was so like I was like, holy shit, is he gonna blow that guy away? And he has like the gun pointed against the door, but you like the other guy doesn't know, and he's just having this friendly conversation, and like it feels genuine, like it feels like he's actually like as much as like like if you wrong move is made, I'm gonna blow him away. You can tell like like he gives his real name, and like he like says like real shit. So like even when he's quote unquote bullshitting, he's not really bullshitting. Like
yeah.
he's just kind of like he's a real guy.
And I even
And I
feel
think
like Frank wouldn't have pulled the trigger anyway,
yeah,
because
like yeah,
the
like
shit
I
that he
think he
does aside, he only does it to quote unquote bad guys. He wouldn't hurt an innocent.
that's true. And like you do get the sense that like it's more of just like it's more like just to show like he's not actually going to pull the trigger, but Daredevil doesn't know that.
Yeah,
He doesn't know like so he knows like all I got to do is like scare Daredevil into keeping quiet. So like he even though he knows he's probably not going to actually kill the guy, he like just wants Daredevil to feel like he might.
yeah.
So
Wants to prove that Daredevil isn't a guy who would take that risk.
yeah. So it's he's just such a strong character, and I'm looking forward to his own show. Um so man, uh that show can't come fast enough.
Yeah,
And But we do have another show coming out. Uh, it's actually, I think, premiering in September. Luke Cage is coming out,
I'm looking forward to that
which,
too, because Luke kind of disappears at the end of Jessica Jones.
yeah, and he was such a strong part of Jessica Jones too. Like he was kind of like this unexpected kind of warmth,
Yeah,
and like this, like he was, uh, because Jessica as a character was so kind of cold and distant, and like you were invested in her story and her as a character, but she wasn't exactly like someone you enjoyed being around necessarily. But Luke Cage was just kind of this guy who was like so imposing, but also so like nice and like kind, and like he had a good heart, and you believed him when he said things. And he and the actor who played him, Mike Coulter, was really really good.
Sweet
And
Christmas.
Sweet Christmas. That was like that was one of my favorite moments in that show. But uh and like yeah, he kind of just disappeared after Jessica Jones, but he has his own series coming out. We haven't had like any kind of trailer yet. But I'm excited for it either way, and I'm really looking forward to September when that drops.